the front end of this race.
Yeah.
Down the gantry goes.
First off was the Spanish crew right in the middle.
Spain.
Told you they were good.
Hungary.
Chicos and Cajalmi this side. They're going to get across to them. So the two Spanish crews, Fernandez, Alvarez, they're just so tidy. I just love the way that boat runs. So Hungarians to the left, Spaniards to the right. They're the two leaders. Chicos and Cajalmi, powerhouses. Fernandez, Alvarez have got to them now.
Gun start from the Hungarians.
Two Spanish, Danes, South Africans just getting in the back there.
There's going to be a big bunch reforming.
That's going to be tight. They're coming across at speed there. All organised.
It's pretty
nicely done. But we'll try and come up the left, leaving the V open for the South Africans. South Africans have fared well through that whole exchange. As Cajalmi leads from Anderson, from Alvarez on the far side. The other Hungarians, I think, South Africans tucked in the back, and Spain too, then Denmark, then South Africa too, then the Australians, Rebecca Mann in that green boat. It's going to be a tough day by the look of it for the Australians. They're just caught for pace a little bit. So Chicos Cajalmi lead, Fernandez Alvarez, Anderson Richter, Osa Toledo, Cinco Chepe, Hockley McKenzie, Anderson, Hansen, Wilson and Burkitt.
Genevieve Stanley and Rachel de Kretse in the Aussie boat in shot here. Other Aussie boat is Rebecca Mann and Kate Leverett, who's been a regular part of the Australian marathon team setup.
So fairly settled, fairly sedate pace at the moment, allowing Rebecca Mann maybe just to regain contact with that group. Just cutting in behind the group now, trying to find a wave, travelling in the direction she wants. Sofia Chicos showing quality at the front. These are tail enders currently from Australia.
Chicos Cajalmi, clearly the threat crew. Everybody was on them like a magnet from the start.
That's a quality K2 as well. You see it lift every time they pull. Estonians in shot.
Nina Riosa, Annette Baum.
South Africa tucked nicely in the V with Hockley and McKenzie.
Saskia Hockley we saw racing one of the younger age groups. Christy not well in the singles race yesterday, so I really hope she was able to put her feet up, recharge, try and deal with whatever the issue was and get back on the water today. That will just serve to fire her up. She's super competitive and certainly much better value than we saw in the singles race. Saskia, super athlete, surf ski, world champion, just come back from the life-saving worlds, and these two groove into a K2 combination.
Just pipping in and out of shot at the back of this group, the green bow of the Australians. They are clinging on. They just can't find comfort. There's comfort behind the Swedes. There's a whole slot there if they can get there. As we move back now to the start of the men's C2.
This is a K2 we're looking at right now, so disregard the graphic you're seeing on screen. Most of these guys wouldn't know. There we go. There's the C2. Thanks, champs. World champions defending their title, Spain. C2 has to weigh in at 14 kgs when it comes into boat control, and there's your field. Romania, Baragu and Sprengtheon. Hungary in Fodor and Soltez. Brazil, Oliveira and Junior. Ukraine, Janchuk and Semelcho. Spain fielding Duro and Grania. Zukora and Borgil for Poland. They'll be super potent. They bring a great pedigree. And then Campos speaks for himself with Diego Romero in Spain.
Current world champions, of course, Diego.
There's the balance of the field as the Romero C2 fields gets underway.
Campos.
It's Ukraine, Italy, Canada, Hungary, Moldova and Portugal.
We've seen many of these guys out multiple times this weekend. There's your world champions, Campos and Romero. Romero, yeah, hasn't had his best weekend maybe. Campos has been super good. Hungarians on the far side.
Plusic and Milvic.
We saw Plusic in the under-23 C1 earlier this weekend. But it's the Ukrainians leading from Hungary, from Spain, and it's the Spain 2 crew of Oscar Grana on that group at the moment. Grana and Jaime Duro. Oh, and you can see the Ukrainians all of a sudden, I don't know what caused that, but they had a massive detour from their racing line there, and they're out across to the group to their right. Now they're heading left again. They seem to be having difficulties out there. Italians also having difficulty out the back of this group currently. Oh, that's the second Ukrainian crew. Still Ukraine 1 leading with 6-5-4, which is Yanchuk and Shemet Yilo. So Yanchuk leads. They've just been overtaken by Fodor and Soltes. Spanish not yet making an impact on this race.
Mika making a fair point about the women's K2 race. Just looks weird without Renata in it.
Something we'll have to get used to.
Yeah.
So there's the women's K2 going around the bottom turn. It's Shikos Kahalmi, Anderson Richter,
and the white boat is now struggling.
Fernandez Alvarez.
It's being pinned tail and nose, and it's pushing 3 boats out to the wide and slowing them down.
Yellow boat at the back, that's the problem child there. They're not letting.
And it's still holding the white boat.
Yep. So Kahalmi still leads. They look like the quality boat. Alvarez on the left of them. Still the South Africans tucked in the V. And the front four's been unchanged for the whole race so far. Chicos looking super strong. And if you're going to have anyone behind you, we've seen what a powerhouse Kahalmi has been all weekend. And that is going very well for her. 2 South Africans still there. The second Hungarians struggling just a little bit. That's Cinco and Chepe. Five boats in that front group, including 2 South African crews. We're saying they haven't had the best weekend so far in terms of results, but this could be a turning point for them.
Yeah, well, I said that Christy McKenzie was going to be disappointed with her very early withdrawal from the women's K1 race. Same must be said of Nikki Burkett. She's paddling with Jade Wilson. They train down in the border region. Andy and Nikki Burkett at the centre of that Nahoon training squad. Jade Wilson, a young star who has paddled with Nikki with great success together, and they will really be looking forward to this occasion. They're good mates, they're good friends, and I think Nix will take her disappointment. Remember, she bailed because she had a screw coming loose on her footplate. For Nick to enter a race with a technical like that will be super frustrating. So hopefully she's channeling that into positive energy for today's race.
So Sweden go through on Hungary. It's the first time the lead's changed since we left the start line. Anderson, we know, has no fear of either distance nor high running speed. She loves both. Hungary at the back have rejoined with the second Spanish crew of Osa and Toledo. And we now have a 7-boat group. And guess who's hanging just off the back of that, just out of shot, is still the Australian boat of Mann and Leverett. They've had an uphill, bleak uphill journey. There they are, just in shot, just under the captions on the left side of your screen. They're still in the game. You see the C2s slightly fragmented coming downstream there, but not so in the women's race. It's a front group of, I'm going to add the Australians in to make it a front group of 8 now. The main crews have filtered to the front.
Weed already collecting, particularly when you're up on that right-hand bank where the water is still and you're very close to the vegetation. The chance of picking up a little bit of weed is, and we've seen that throughout the week.
Yeah, and of course with boats going past, they chop off little bits of weed with the paddles as they go by. They pick up more and more. The weed that was squashed against the side gets stirred up as well. But maybe up to 9 now. The Danes also joining this group. Anderson, Hansen. They were struggling badly on that bottom turn. They were touching the back of the other boats, and it was holding everybody up.
Two big sellers from the retailers that have got setups in the athletes area. One is the weed deflector, which is being glued, epoxied on just ahead of the rudder blade. And the other one was the wave deflector, which they sold out of super quick before the all the dramas of yesterday.
Osa and Toledo just finding a more comfortable position on that group as we left them. As we move back to the C2 race, it's Fodor and Soltes, Duro and Grana out the front, followed by Zukora and Bourgil in the white boat and their familiar red and white outfits. On their wash is Campos and Romero. So the 4 big players all up at the front. Just behind them, we've got the Romanians of Sprincene and Barragal on the far side of the river. As we go around the turn, Spaniards at the back.
Tight turn from the poles.
It's well organised actually. You see the Spaniards just touching the back of the poles boat. They don't mind, nor do the poles, because it's helping them get round a tight turn here. Now the yellow boat might start minding. The poles are coming across, but that's the Spanish of Grana and Duro, but they've got the inside line going upstream, and these 4 are away and clear. Moldovans in the red hats, red outfits further back down. Tarnovshi and Tarnovshi. They were 4th last year, but it's not looking like a repeat of that for them this year. I know it's early days, but it's very hard to catch up in the canoes.
That drone shot at the turn gives us a super look at the 2 ways of making a tight turn in a C2. A lot of the crews opting for the front paddler using the bow draw stroke. The con of that is that it costs you boat speed because you're slowing the boat down. It's effectively a braking stroke. A lot of them are using the front paddler with a very wide sweep stroke at the front, which is a positive forward stroke and costs you less boat speed. But you do need to have the space alongside you to be able to do that. And
you've got to have your front man as a right-hander.
Correct that. In that particular case, yes.
Yeah. Which, in that shot, limits that to the Spanish boat of Grana and Duro. So they've got that option. The others have the draw stroke option. Grana and Duro make their way to the front. They're in the yellow boat. The Hungarians of Fodor and Soltes to their left side. Then the Poles, Zukio and Bajou.
Back to the K2 women.
No change, except that Rebecca Mann is gradually making her way into a much more secure, much more comfortable place in this group. To do what she's done all the way down, she's having a great championship. South Africans move across to the V, push the other South Africans out to the left. They hamper Mann again, who has to come around the left side of the Spaniards. No portage, of course.
Thank goodness.
First lap. Can Rebecca Mann get all the way to Spanish? I don't think she can. She's done so much work on this first lap. South Africans, Burkitt and Wilson, hoping those Australians will come round and give them a V-wash just to help them out a little bit. But with this first turn's going to be super interesting. Well, I think, just like we saw in the junior boys, we may get a couple of penalties here. It's so hard to change direction in a K2. Chicos and Kahalmi just looking awesome.
Jade Wilson actually spent some time training in Oz recently. She was in Western Australia with the Ascot Canoe Club. Good for her training base, and she would have struck up a couple of relationships, and who knows when those relationships come to benefit her in an event like this. Might just cut her some slack and
I'll keep my
look after each other.
Private life, Dave. What relationships she strikes up is none of my business.
Good working sporting relationships.
Exactly.
Before you throw me under the bus again.
We're due to have a bit of action here, and the vulnerable crews here are Burkitt and man, I think, at the back of that group. We'll see how they get on. Round go the Hungarians, Spain to their left. Those two should be safe. Hungarians strong round the turn. Aerial shot would be lovely if we got the drone up. There we go. It's this next boy.
Oh, and there's already been a collision. Second boat.
This is it.
Second
here.
takes out 4.
They made it round. Not too bad. A little bit of contact. Hungarians press on. Sweden to their right.
Mick has raised an interesting point in the comments column here. The last time we raced in Metkovic, they took out the first portage in lap 2 because they said the race was too long. What's up with that this year? Convention has got to be that the first lap is full and there's a portage on every other lap and then the short lap. So, Mick, a good point. We'll have to dig into the history books and see what happened last time, but if that was the case, it was very much the exception to the rule.
So 3 big guns away. They've been at the front throughout. Is the Hungarians, Swedes and Spanish. The South Africans, Hockley Mackenzie, had been on the V in that group. They just got buffered a little bit at the turn, and this is a, well, intimidating front group at best. You've got the quality of Chicos, the power of Cahalmi, and they've stepped it up again now. You've got the relentlessness of Anderson, and you've got the sheer K2 brilliance of the Spanish. And that is going to be a hard group to chase. There is a V open there, if anyone can catch it.
It's a big ask, I think, Ivan. Chicos and Cahalmi, I think, have thrown down a gauntlet here.
There is somebody, it is Hockley and Mackenzie, who are gradually inching their way back there. And in the process, Wilson and Burkitt are getting dragged up, but it's going to be hard for Wilson and Burkitt once they get there. They're not going to have a comfort zone. South Africans just going over another hill now. If they can get over this one, it's a downhill run to the V-wash, and it will be a breath of fresh air for them if they do it. They're still stuck just behind that one last wave.
Mackenzie and Hockley have ground their way back onto that front bunch. That's a great effort from them.
Coming up close to the tail of the Swedes, then they'll just duck in after that. Here we go, they've made it.
Onto the diamond.
Nicely done, ladies. That is a big chase, and that's opened the gap. The others couldn't stay. That was Wilson and Burkitt. They looked like they were being strung out as we go back to the C2.
Spain.
Grana and Duro made a little break, just a length or 2, but it can be significant in the C boat races. We haven't got Campos and Romero. That's probably the biggest surprise we could have in this race. They come in as world champions, and they're not going to leave today as world champions. That looks certain at this stage. Sun's beating in through our door now, Dave. Temperatures raising in the Portaloo, and life's looking pretty good.
Well, I'm going to ask you to review your day yesterday, where you were pretty good, but where you failed dismally was the management of our air conditioner. You set it for 30 degrees, and we got baked in the sun. So well, I hope you've reviewed your strategy and you've got that remote under control.
I put the remote back where it belongs, in its little holster up by the machine now. I didn't like the air conditioning. It made me too cold. And then, obviously, when we turned it off, we got quite hot.
And so your computer fell down and died.
My computer died because it got too hot in here. That tells you something. That was a bit of a moment, wasn't it? Anyway, Fodor leading the poles, and they're both looking at the back of the Spanish crew of Duro and Grana. Campos and Romero being caught there by the Romanians. So tempted to say Spring Clean, but there's no L in it. So Spring Clean and Baragao from Romania are just on the tail of the second Spanish crew, and there's someone to their right as well. Camila Cerda and Coelho from Portugal. How come we haven't mentioned them at all yet? That's the first time, first shout out. So apologies to the Portuguese for missing that.
Good course management as the two turn tight around that top apex buoy, which is always the trouble one.
There's your leaders. Oscar Grana in the back there. 20th birthday this weekend.
We'll do multiples of.
Bourgil and Zukora. Big win for Bourgil yesterday. His first gold at this level. They're always there or thereabouts in the C2. Zukora didn't have such a great day. He ended up swimming after a light touch on the back deck of, I can't remember who now, I think it was the Hungarian. And that was an instant payback there. He was straight in the water. There's nowhere to empty out on that side of the river. It's so deep there. But these two continue their march. Just a few lengths ahead. About 30 meters.
Back to the women's K2 now. And it's the Hungarian Shikos and Kohalmi.
A massive regrouping, really. We're not.
Yep.
I thought that front four might be away and clear, but it wasn't to be. We're back to 7 boats.
This is a 26k affair. It's going to be a 7-lapper, 6 portages.
This is a fairly, if everyone's caught up, it's a fairly pedestrian pace being set at the front.
It's a bit cat and mousey right now.
Yeah, Chikos and Kohalmi. Chikos, very experienced racer. Yeah, she's won multiple medals in her time, and she knows what she's doing. She's managing her race at the moment.
Yeah, there's no doubt that that K2, the white boat with the red and detailed deck, is going to be the boat to watch in this race. And the other 6 crews on there fully know that their chances hinge on keeping that boat in view all the time.
Yeah. Chikos, 4 finishes, 2 golds and 2 silvers, and that's not a bad record to go into any championship with. And with Kohalmi in the back, who's on great form this weekend, you have to feel, and you look at the coordination in that boat and the timing, that is going to be a tough boat to beat. The other Hungarians to their left now, South Africa to their right. Best Spanish crew tucked in the back with the second Spanish crew just to their left and behind. So Fernandez, Alvarez for now taking the ride in the V, and these two at the front are just, they're literally just covering distance, aren't they? They don't really mind who's with them by the look of it. Not sure where the Swedes are in that group at the moment. There they are, there just at the back of the group.
That shot we've just enjoyed, where we basically had a front-on look at the crews and how they're timing, how they get the boat to move, how the boat responds to the paddle strokes, just give you a sense of the pedigree of the boats, how much time has been spent in it, and when you get that sort of class suddenly gelling in a combination, and some combinations never gel.
Never work, however good the component parts are.
Yeah, and some they just never look messy, they're never ultimately efficient, and some of them just purr. That Hungarian boat is just glorious to watch in action.
And the Spanish, you got the 2 Hungarians now together, then the Spanish to the left. That's another well-drilled, superb K2. You're right about the K2 of Hockley Mackenzie. That also runs really well. So 7 boats. Finally, it seems that Mann and Leverett, the elastic snapped, and they're a good few meters behind now. They struggled for a long time to find a comfort zone in this group and never quite had the firepower to climb that last wave.
Saskia Hockley in the under-23s in the K1 race and racing with Christy today.
C2's heading down to the turn. You can see nothing's really changed in that race, except maybe Romero and Campos maybe have picked up a little bit. They're third at the moment.
So Portage 1 coming up for the women's.
Portage in. The Spanish are pretty good. South Africans generally are pretty good at their portaging,
Yes.
aren't they? They've done enough races with portages back at home. Anderson runs really well with her K1. I'm not sure how the K2 will fare. It's very different coordinating a K2 to just running your own method. Kohalmi wasn't the best runner in the senior women's K1, but she still managed to remain in contact.
The reality from what we've seen on the water is they can afford to be mediocre on the portage and still be the hottest crew on the water.
They've only got to keep in contact with the back end of the group and they'll be through in no trouble at all.
Battery level is low. Aircraft will return to the home point in 10 seconds.
What are we picking up there, Dave? Air traffic control?
I just heard somebody in my ear say the battery is your pacemaker. You got fresh batteries and
no, they said then the aircraft will return to base. So I guess it's the drone.
It's the drone. The drone we're listening to. It's quite fun.
So we're going to lose our drone shot in a minute.
I'm loving this. This game is just not worth watching without the drone.
No,
to be honest, the drone is just a complete.
Anyone running these events now, you have to have a drone. Look at that shot there.
Yeah, it's just. Let's just take a moment before things get spicy later in the race, just to say thanks to our production team. It really is no mean feat to stretch 15 cameras out over the full distance of this course to get drones in the air and to try and keep an eye on simultaneous races. So an in advance thank you to the production team and all the technicians and the cameramen that have been out there in the rain and in the sun to make sure that we can get these images. We take them for granted. We'd like to say thanks.
Pretty much being treated as a training paddle at the moment by the Hungarians there. They're just lolloping along, super comfortable, super well coordinated.
Somebody will gun it shortly because that portage is just around the corner and 8 boats coming into the portage.
Where can they come from, the people who are gunning it? It can only be the Spanish really on the outside, but it's not. They're going to go to the left anyway, aren't they? From there, you would imagine.
You'd hope.
2 Hungarians on the right, 2 Spanish on the left. Nobody else can squeeze through. So they're in a very dominant position at the moment, the Hungarians. South Africans have got nowhere to go. Swedes have got nowhere to go.
Eight K2s coming into a portage together. We've seen 2 getting out comfortably on each side.
So Hungary lead. I don't know if you can hear us over the local music here now. I can barely hear myself here in commentary. But the Hungarians 1 and 2, Spain 3, South Africa 4, Sweden 5 with the Spanish on the outside. Not far to go now. A bit more pace here just to make sure that attacks can't happen. It's affected Spain too. They've had to drop to the tail of Spain 1. Everything's picking up. Just a little more stress, a little more action, speed. Nobody seems capable of coming past these lead Hungarians. Second, Cinco and Chepe are having a little go. They look like they're going left.
They do.
There's a lot of waiting around at the back there from the South Africans. They're going to come in quite late now.
Hungary, 1 left, 1 right. Both out of the water quickly first.
Wilson and Burkitt dithering a little bit at the back.
Good quick takeout from Saskia
Spain
Hockley
2 also at the back. South Africans only out the water
Look
now.
on the left, there goes Mackenzie and Hockley. Trying to push their way through on the right.
These 5 Spanish there in 5th. Alvarez and Fernandez, these are the big ones, but the South Africans are the big winners on this.
And the boat's going a little bit sideways as they come down to the put-in.
Very well organised putting in. Swedish are being patient. Away go the Hungarians. Spain 2 only just putting their boat in now, and Burkitt only just arriving now. There's going to be a big gap between Burkitt at the tail end of this group and Hungary at the front end. It's going to be Hungary making a run from the first South African crew. Looking good there, Hockley and Mackenzie. And here we go on another top turn. People coming in at angles. It's going to be tight.
Yep.
And it's going to be the second Hungarian crew of Cinco and Chepe. They're around this one. It's the next one. It just gets hard on the inside. The angles just change too quickly. There you can see the problem. They're over the back of the other boat. They went straight over the back of their teammate's boat. Denmark, Great Britain, chasing. That's Rosa and Lampf and Anderson and Hansen. And it's 3 boats away. Sweden and Spain together, and they are 2 quality crews, so that the group isn't finalized, but Cinco and Chepe are definitely, it's a bit of waiting here.
Bit slow for the Argentinians, but they're on their way.
And the Estonians just behind them. 3 boats away.
So portage 1, what we learned from that is that Chicos and Kahalmi are not just good, they're very good. They're going to be fine on the portage. There is going to be a threat coming from the crew of Christy McKenzie and Saskia Hockley. They ran that one brilliantly.
On portage,
they were also very calm at the put in there. They didn't try and jockey for the position at the end of the pontoon. But
and
it's just reinforced
the South Africans have got a dream seat now. We're very much looking at a repeat of the junior boys this morning. South Africans are the weaker of the 3 on the water. I don't think they'll mind me saying that. For now, at least, until the race pans out. They're getting a free ride ahead of some other good crews that they would think of as being at least as good as them. But they're benefiting just like the GB boys did this morning in the junior men's K2. And this is a dream situation for them.
So your pre-race favourites, Zoka Chicos and Nemes Kolhalmi, living up to their pre-race billing. They've had enough of the pull. They look over the shoulder and they turn to the other Hungarian boat, say, right, you're going to go to the front. It's Panasinko and Panachepe who go to the front, and the South African crew of Christy McKenzie and Saskia Hockley will pull up.
They're actually doing the right thing here. They're just shifting from one tail to the next, because if they come up this side and the group changes, they've got to drop all the way round to the other side. So they're just picking up the cheap seats at the back there. It's a good cheap seat. It's a high grade cheap seat, and they will just flip as the Hungarians change washes. They'll just move up with the new leader, and their job is really quite simple. Not saying it's easy, but it's a simple job. C1s all together still. It's the Portuguese have put their hat in the ring. It's Lacerda and Coelho of Portugal chasing down Duro and Grana, and they look good. They've caught up. They were not in the lead picture on the first lap, but they are going to be in the lead picture when it comes to the first portage.
Let's get a read of where Campos and
Here
Romero
is that
are.
first portage.
Here we go.
Portuguese typically run pretty well. Bit slow out the boat, you have to say.
Poles emptying. A lot of water coming out of that boat.
There's a lot of water coming out of both boats. Spaniards super well organised.
Poles going into the feeding zone on the first portage.
We had a little graphic come up there that I missed. I don't know if anyone else saw that. Apologies. It was about a Brazilian crew.
Let me see if I can pick up some information from the official
Which could be an abandonment from Oliveira and Junior in this C2 race. So away they go. Portugal did run well. They're back in with the Spaniards. And I'm favouring Portugal in this one now. They've had a win already this morning, and this could be a second win for Portugal. Is certainly an option at this stage. But they're up against some big guns.
Just seeing an interesting note on the official The official chat group here pointing out that of the Aussie boats, they had one very late replacement because somebody went down with food poisoning. It's not a good thing to happen on race day. So
Poles, Zukora, Bourgil, they now lead the chase back to Duro and Granat. As the music volume goes up yet again, and it's very hard to concentrate here now. It's like invasive in that. I don't know if I'm hearing it through the headphones or through outside the headphones.
I think this might be game management. The time might become to close the door on the Portaloo and crank on the aircon, because I think
let's try it, because this is unbearable.
They do love a good tune in Metkovic. That I can testify as we lie in our bed in the hotel and listen to the band offering some very creative interpretations of well-known classics.
That is a bit better. Yeah, we had dodgy classic recreations well into the night last night outside my window in the hotel.
Call them avant-garde or jazzy interpretations of rock classics.
Let's call them really annoying, Dave, because that's what they were. They were really annoying. I just wanted to go to sleep, but no.
I heard an interpretation of Eric Clapton's Wonderful Tonight that just defies
I heard a strangulation of the same song.
Did you?
Yeah.
Wondered if it was being played backwards.
Not so much an interpretation. This is quite interesting. The Spanish crew of Fernandez and Alvarez are super good, and they are failing at the moment to close down this gap. Anderson also not stepping up. It seems to be left to the Spanish to do it. Need a bit more coordination in this group if there's going to be true motivation, or they wait for Rebecca Mann to do the job for them from further back down the field. Hungary 1, Hungary 2, South Africa 3, and the South Africans just dip in from one wash to the next, and they will never even have to lead in this race. They won't be called on to lead, I'm sure. They might choose to, but the Hungarians very happy just to sit and share the lead between them. God, these three really need to put together a coordinated attack on that lead, not just wait for the one crew to do it. Fernandez, Alvarez, they are quality K2. I've followed them for many years. They finally got their gold in Portugal 2 years ago. But as a K2 crew, they're one you should aspire to be like if you're watching this. They are super good. But they are struggling today to close down this gap.
Look at the stroke rates, Ivan. Boats are all effectively moving at the same speed. There's a little bit of a move, but look at the stroke rates in terms of a measure of efficiency. The South African crew, I know they're trying to move up alongside, but they are flailing away to try and keep going at the same pace that the Hungarians, Shikos and Kohalmi, are doing.
It's just, I think, just a different method of doing the same job, Dave. The Hungarians are power and the South Africans are endurance. If it came to a 100-meter race, I don't think the South Africans would be that close to them.
How much of that is technical? Are we paddling with longer shafts, bigger blades?
No, it's just gripping the water in a different place. See how fast the top hands of the South Africans come from the water. When it comes out, the hand comes straight to the front. You see the Hungarian hands, they come up towards the shoulder first when they leave the water. So the South African hand comes straight from the water at the back there, straight to the front. And that's...
There's the boat of Jade Wilson.
That's an evolution issue, I think. You know, the South Africans have grown up on the rivers. It's a very different scenario to smooth, flat, deep water. And it's effective. You know, we've seen not hundreds. I was going to lie there, Dave. We've seen plenty of South Africans up the sharp end of these races and beating people who are technically or traditionally technically more gifted, so, or more drilled, let's say.
It's what works for you.
Yeah. the K2 that we had in Great Britain a few years ago with Faye Lampf and Lizzie Broughton, they had a stroke rate almost double anyone else's as well. It was more sort of a dibble-dabble rather than a chunk, shunk, shunk, which the Hungarians use. And yeah, it's just a different way of doing it. Which is frustrating when you're a coach, because I'm trying to teach the kids I work with. I would use this front K2, Chicos and Cahalmi as a model. So there you go. That's how you run a K2. And they're going to say to me, well, I like doing it the same way the South Africans are doing it. And that's and I can't argue with that because they're all in the same place. But the model you're seeing at the front there, that's a sort of traditional, well-accepted technical model.
And as you pointed out earlier, some combinations work, some don't. When you get a combination that works, you just groove into what works for you. If you look at the Chicos Cahalmi boat, it is rock solid in the water. It hardly budges. It lifts with every stroke, but that deck is almost rock solid. You can go back to Christy McKenzie and Saskia Hockley there. They're happy to roll the boat with every stroke. There's a big pivot, there's a big rotation, and there's a big roll of the boat, but they're obviously comfortable in it, and it's working for them.
Yeah, that might bring you back to a surf ski background, because as a flat water paddler who's gone to surf ski, I still have this massive desire to keep my boat 100% level, which is a completely pointless exercise, but that's my background. Let's go to the C2s, we'll come back to that. So all three boats now together. Douro Grana have been caught up by Zucora, Borgio, Lacerda, Coelho. So if you've got a surf ski background where you don't mind that boat rolling around, why not bring it into the flat water stuff? It's not necessarily a negative.
The boat lifting with every stroke is not inefficient. The boat bouncing with every stroke is inefficient.
Okay, that's going to be a fairly well-organised journey for 3 more laps, I think, of 6. It's very hard to see anything changing there unless...
There's a great look at the turning technique of the left and right paddled front paddler.
I think maybe on the portage, maybe the Portuguese have got the edge.
Marginally.
But we're talking marginal decisions there.
From a spectacle point of view, it'd be terrific to see these 3 come out of the last portage together. It'd be a good end sprint.
It normally just kind of fizzles towards the end of the C2 races, and it's K2 in the background there.
And
as like the Australians,
as the year's ultimate platform of marathon racing, I will this race to go to an exciting end sprint for seaboat racing's sake.
Okay. That's Johnson and De Kretzer going around that turn with the C2s. Going round just behind them is the Hungarians, Fodor and Soltes in the white boat, and the Tarnovshis in the other boat there. Campos and Romero are somewhere in between this group and the group we just saw going around the portage.
How much would you as a coach rely on video analysis from the water of a crew in action and to be able to fine-tune their action? Or can you?
I think different coaches would give you different things. It's very hard, because when you watch an image, even if you see a photo.
They're in the bush. The back boat is in the bush. They're in the reeds and they've lost contact with the rest of the group. Just a momentary lapse of concentration or a wave that bounced them. They were so close to that right-hand bank. They're going to have to put in a little bit of a burn to get onto it, and the rest of the front 2 have sensed that something's gone wrong, and they're going to make them sweat every bit of the way to get back onto the bunch.
There goes the front group of the K2 separating out for the portage. Top crew with Cahalmi in the back are first to rise and first to run. Then the second Hungarian. South Africans, a little bit dodgy contact with the boat, but they recovered super well, and it looks like
all 3 together.
Looks like we're on a journey in this one too, doesn't it?
South Africa trying to push at the right like they did, and they're going to do it too. They'll probably get the first bite at that right-hand put-in.
I think they've got to push up quite a long way
closed
before
up. Contact being made with
I think they put that sign on there because yesterday we had the incident with the
it collided with the
Italian
crowd
guy.
control railing, yeah.
So I think that sign is an extra today that hasn't been there up till now.
Well, it's a slightly dented extra now.
It's a tough call, that, because the Hungarians were leading, South Africans were running faster, but they were running out of time.
Jaden, Mickey Burkett.
At some point, the Hungarians just said, yeah, actually no, you're not. Yeah, you haven't got time to come through. Don't mess about, and they just sort of closed the door on them, and that's more than fair.
More than fair. If you want, you need to be much quicker, much more aggressive on the portage.
What's happening there?
Oh, somebody's gone left of the board.
That's the Hungarians have got no rudder.
They've lost steering.
That's one Hungarian crew out of the game, and that's Cinco and Sepe. They didn't look to be damaging anything at the portage, but most certainly that is not the path.
They've got a rudder hooked hard left.
Yeah, they're done. I don't know if they can do anything about that. So it must have been up against the bottom of the boat. When they steered left to get out to the turn, it would have clicked across the bottom of the boat and stuck on the other side of the sort of lowest point, the keel, if you like, of the boat. And there was no bringing it back. And for them, I mean, how much is this panning out like the boys K2 race? We had 3 strong boats. The second strongest has fallen back, and now there's just 2. South Africans are the equivalent of Great Britain in the first race we saw today. Now all they've got to do is do what they're told, and they might be able to slowly do some damage to the Hungarians over time.
South Africa go to the front now. Suddenly the race has changed. Chikos and Konhalmi have been front runners and happy to be at the front and take up the pull. Now everybody's taking stock of it all.
The Chikos and Konhalmi will only have seen, no disrespect to South Africans, they will only have seen these girls as the girls they had to worry about.
Got you.
Now they're so relaxed. I'm not saying they're going to win, don't get me wrong, but for now they're like, wow, our race was against our teammates up till this point. Now it's a different race.
This is going to be a very cozy relationship for the next 3 laps.
I think whereas I said a lap ago that those South Africans will never have to do any work, I think the Hungarians will be happy to let them do as much as they want now. Before it was Hungary versus Hungary. That game's over. And now it's Hungary versus South Africa. And it's just a case. We're on 4 of 7 so far. Going back down the field, we've got Hockley Mackenzie leading, Chikos Konhalmi second, Osa Toledo with Fernandez and Alvarez and Anderson Richter, a group of 3. Wilton and Burkitt, another 100 odd meters behind them. Mann and Leverett, Cinco Shepe just going backwards because they've stopped. Anderson, Hansen, Lampf and Rosa in 10th. Velasquez and Munoz in 11th, Riosa and Baum 12th, Johnson and Kretzer from Australia in 13th.
Trading the pulls in 1-minute intervals. You can see there's 4 GPSs on those boats, so they'll know exactly what's going on. And there was a clear instruction that the minute was up, and the switch happened. Back to the seas. And after that little visit to the horticulture on the banks of the Neretva, we're back to there. They are in contact, but there's a bit of a grind required to get back onto them. Zakora and Borgil looking very strong as they come past Duro and Grana.
One thing to whet your appetite for this afternoon's race is that Pedersen, who wasn't in the K2 race, is now in the K2 race.
Oh, you're kidding me.
So he's stepping up to K2. I don't know whether that's to do with illness, injury. I think he's paddling with Knudsen this afternoon. Knudsen won the under-23.
So Soren Moretti is out.
Soren Moretti is out and Pedersen is in. Or it says change with Knudsen. So he might be...
Knudsen might be the
so we're not sure. It's a bit ambiguous. But Pedersen is in the K2 race this afternoon. And there'll be a few people who are thinking, oh no, really?
That does kind of shake things up.
So Cinco Sepe have been abandoned. Borgil, Zukora lead the men's C2. Duro Grana looking at the back of another crew, I think for the first time.
Oh, what a slip!
Journey.
Luckily, the back paddler had a paddle blade in the boat to keep it in contact, but
Romero,
we were just saying how well this portage had passed the test of the rainy days and the slippery days and the dry surfaces. It's been a great portage take out and put in. That's the first time we've seen somebody slip on that surface.
So Romero may be looking a couple of pounds over his fighting weight there.
Easy. Yeah.
That might be why they're not up the sharp end. Maybe training hasn't been as he would have liked it to be this year. There's your leaders, just a few meters ahead of the Spaniards and the Portuguese. In fact, everyone looks like they're back. Spaniards are back.
They're on lap 4 now.
Duro, Grana. Could just be two boats. Not sure where the Portuguese are.
We were chatting yesterday about the ability of marathon to take you competitively well into your 40s. There's the grey hair of Oscar Grana.
Should we do a quick check?
Yeah, I'll go back to the greatest spreadsheet of all time, and but Oscar Grana with his grey hair is an inspiration to all of us who are now sporting more salt and pepper than we were of our teenage hair, to keep racing at this level, because marathon accommodates you. There's a place for you here.
He is born in 1976, which makes him 47 years old.
Arguably the
oldest on.
We've had a 43 and a 44 that we've dealt with, but 47 I think is.
Yeah. He's had 16 finishes, 4 golds, 6 silvers, and 3 bronze. 13 medals from 16 finishes. It's no surprise he's up the sharp end. Maybe the only surprise is that he's still up the sharp end.
Go you good thing.
Two Spaniards and the Swedes.
The two Tanyas.
A little bit disappointing that they haven't mounted a more serious
But there's
chase.
the front of the race.
Okay, we got the full info. Pedersen is replacing Knudsen in the K2, paddling with Moretti.
Well, Mads is obviously feeling strong after his single-handed domination of the racing yesterday. He was on top of the world.
Okay, here's a question then. If you're Moretti and you're in that K2, I mean, that's it. If it doesn't go well, it very much looks like it's your fault. It's a tough one. You're on a lose-lose.
My immediate question is, how much time have they spent in a boat together? Is that a combination which is familiar?
I think they're all at the same club.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are regular K2 paddlers. And as good as Mads is, and Soren is a great paddler in his own right, you pop them in the boat together. If it's on very little familiarity together, they might scratch.
There's no guarantee they're going to be. They will be in up the sharp end, I'm sure, but there's no guarantee they're going to be dominant. But it's very hard. A big name in a boat like Pedersen, and a lot of the focus is on him, obviously. Yep.
And with his tactical brain and race plan.
I don't think we know that Pedersen has got a tactical brain or a race plan.
Well, he has, but it's brutal.
Yeah,
but if you put him in the front of the boat and let him take all the decisions and drive, it's going to put pressure on Soren.
I'd be terrified of being in the back.
Soren would be under such pressure to deliver to Mads' standards. Yeah, I don't think there's another person in the world that could match Mads.
I think, if it was me in the back and Mads in the front and he took off after the first turn like he did yesterday,
you'd whack him in the back of the head,
I'd be so pissed. I'd just think, really, you're going to make me do this? And so you have different mindsets. I mean, I don't know. they're going to be half decent, aren't they? It's
They might
something
just,
to look forward
that little
to.
accidental stroke that whacks him in the shoulder blade,
Yeah.
saying no,
No, not yet.
no.
South Africa lead. That pretty much falls to what we were saying earlier. The Hungarians very happy just to bank on themselves being good over the last.
Team South Africa
Last little bit
desperate
of
to
this.
compensate for the disappointment of the first couple of days in this year's champs. And right now, a medal here would be a treat for Team
Yeah.
South Africa. Let's ignore what potentially might happen
Yeah.
later today in the men's K2. And it involves athletes who are part of the disappointment
South
racing in the
Africans put their
singles race.
paddles down. Hungarians are in no hurry to
No,
go
but-
past them.
There is a mutually agreed upon rotation here, which is suiting everybody just fine.
There's no mutuality about it, I don't think, Dave.
I timed the first rotation. It was exactly 60 seconds, and I'm pretty sure there would have been an unspoken agreement saying
Okay.
this is the way the rotation happens. They're all carrying Garmins on their boats. and
Great
that
Britain and Denmark in shot. They're down a little way. It's not over till it's over, but probably not the day. We're looking at 8th and 9th place, Anderson, Hansen, and Lampf and Rosa. This is the front though. Hungarians just lolloping along. The thing is, I don't think those Hungarians fear anybody
Yeah.
in this race apart from their teammates, and their teammates are no longer in the picture, so they're not particularly flustered. It's the same scenario that we had in the junior boys, where the South Africans, as the on paper at least, the weaker of the two, just have to do what they're expected to do. I mean, that's a nice little easy K2 race as it stands.
Saskia with a high platform seat in the back there. You see she's very high in that back cockpit, but that boat is cruising. So Chrissy with disappointment of not being able to finish. Saskia, of course, copped that penalty for that very dramatic portage put-in incident, or the portage.
Oh yeah,
So
I'd
she would
forgotten that.
she would love to erase that with a medal here. Would really just bin all of that to history.
So a bit of inside information. Both Moretti and Pedersen are from Silkeborg.
Yes.
But Pedersen trains in Copenhagen at the moment, so they're not training together as such.
Yeah, it doesn't guarantee that they're going to just drop into that boat. You must have been in a couple of K2s that are just destined never to work.
Oh,
You can try.
And when you're in them, it's just
It's
the
torture.
most bleak experience, because your brain is telling you it should be good. Every bit of information coming into your body is saying that it isn't. and you're right. You're always right.
And it can be torture when you persevere. You're trying to put foam under the seats to chock the seats in different directions. I mean, you try everything just to try and get that boat to run properly and to settle. And some are just destined never to work.
The insider information we're getting from Dave Francis in Denmark is that his opinion is that it might not gel too well. Moretti's a tactical racer, likes to move around, sort of around the back of the group. Yeah, and there's some strong crews in there. He's named Burkett and Lovemore as his strong crew.
Yep.
But you can't ignore Romalo and Pimenta. You also can't ignore the Swedish crew, who've teamed up their best tactician with a big engine. So yeah, there's a lot of people throwing a lot of stuff at the wall in that race, and it's going to be quite an interesting race. So 1-2 in the C2s. Granat and Duro, and the two Polish, Zukora and Borgil.
So the C2s
Portugal
are
well off the pace now. It was
heading
about here last time, wasn't it, where they hit the reeds?
They went
And
gardening.
it's been kind of downhill for them ever since. And the chase group is over a minute behind, so pretty much set here.
Back to the women, looking very comfortable.
The South Africans did do a catch-up when, I can't remember who was running at the time. I think it was the second Hungarian crew were leading. So they have caught up under their own steam.
That was a solid catch-up. It was impressive.
And once again, we will
Into the portage they come, both going right.
No stress there at all. Maybe a bit of spray into the front of the South African
Just
boat.
a little bit slow picking up the boat from the Hungarians.
There's no
good
real rush.
takeout from the South Africans. This is going to be preservation of the status quo. Boats. Oh, the boat's been
it's
dropped.
No, it's the paddle that was dropped. Just had to stop for the paddle.
Saskia
They
dropped
just
her
were trying to
paddle.
empty the boat. It's a difficult one, coordinating the paddles. You've got to turn the boat upside down. The paddles are always in the way. But that gap isn't going to be terminal, I don't think.
And there'd be nothing to gain by breaking here for Hungary.
Well, only Hungary don't care. Yeah, they are
I think
fast enough.
they back themselves 10 times out of 10 to win this race in the setup. So
they leave him with a bit of intent, that's for sure. It could be.
they've still got 2 full laps to go. They will make the South Africans sweat to get back on, but get back on they definitely will.
Yeah, there's nothing in it there. Spaniards coming through, Spain 1 and Spain 2. That's Alvarez, Fernandez,
Along with Sweden.
Osa and Toledo, Anderson and Richter. Anderson getting the best of the portage.
Good put in from Melina Anderson and Ella Richter. And a slow one from the Spanish. They're going to have to burn some matches to make up for that.
Even on their own there, the South Africans had a little bit of trouble with that top buoy. There was a little bit of deviation there. It must be, these people aren't stupid and they're not low skilled. It must be a lot harder to get around that top buoy than you would imagine. Strong flow, obviously, but they've all paddled in strong flow, especially these two.
Yeah.
So it must just be the positioning in the river that adds to the spice there. It's not those first two, they're generally okay. It's this one. I think you're coming down at it so fast sideways that it catches people out.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, it's a bit like that slalom gate that's been put in there.
And it's the crews that are behind. They start to change their angle with the lead boat, but they can't afford to. They still have to be going almost upstream to stay up above that buoy. And it's that different angle. Well, we can't see a South African in shot there. But they must be, they were right there, weren't they?
That's a Rolls-Royce K2. It really is impressive.
It is.
Oh, they've got quite a bit of work to do.
Wide.
They will get there, but they're going to have to...
Yeah, it's going to cost a little bit.
They're going to have to burn some matches to get there. When they put in, Saskia was very vocal to Christy to try and egg her on, and they're working hard to catch up.
That's a full-on attempt. You can see in that what I mean about the hands racing to the front. See the girls' hands, they come flinging forward. You look at the Hungarian hands, they go up to the shoulder first and then forward, up to the shoulder and then forward. Just a different way of doing the same job. Means the Hungarians get to load the front of their stroke a little more, which is why the boat rises in the water more. And that's, a couple of good role models right there, especially in the front. It's super nice.
When you're setting up a K2 to be optimal in terms of racing, get them to paddle with the same length paddle, same blades? Does it make any difference?
It typically doesn't happen. It's just whatever feels comfortable. So in my K2 that I used to race in the marathons, I had to shorten my paddles a little bit just so that it felt better. You just go and feel, and yeah, the rhythm with the short paddle worked better for the two of us, not for. It's all about the two of you at this stage.
Matching blades, does it make no difference?
No,
just whatever's good for you.
Yep. That gap hasn't closed. But we've got a bit of encouragement from the cyclists for the South Africans, so they don't sound too stressed. They've come out to the side there.
I can tell from the tone of the voice that it's Saskia's mom. They're working hard to come up on the inside.
They're going to get there. They've only got one wave to go now, and then they can move across.
Back to the seaboat race in the poles. Matthias Sukora and Matthias Borgil
are currently leading. The others through the drinks lane, and there's your third place, Lacerda and Coelho. Bit of traffic
coinciding with some of the K2s putting into the water.
That's the Estonians.
Very gentlemanly accommodation of each other.
Estonians are with the Danes, I think.
Jordan Erasmus, thanks for the comment. Believe you me, we've got the same priorities as you. We want to make sure that we highlight the ends of both of these races and we don't detract from any of them by focusing on the wrong events. Teams wide awake to it. Thanks for the comments. Those technical comments, by the way, super valuable to us.
Smoothly around that first buoy.
It's so elegant in a seaboat when you can cut right up against the buoy and just flick that blade around as you go over the buoy. It's just, that's a confident team doing that.
So Hungarians and Spain too. Hungarians,
good
look a bit.
Good foot kept in the boat, otherwise it was drifting away. There's the mandatory demolition of the boat slide as you turn it over to empty it.
Leaders up and running, making smooth progress on to their 5th lap of 6. So 2 more big laps and 1 small lap. Portuguese just off the pace by about 140 meters.
Looking at the front two, running a rule over them right now, I would fancy the Poles for gold.
Yeah, I'll go with you on that one, Dave. Especially off the back of yesterday, where he's already got his first win, and that must give you a bit of confidence.
The Spaniards
you
go
see
to the front.
K2, women's K2 in the background. They're not allowed to join in with a race that isn't their class, so they can't sit on the wave of these guys. I mean, there's waves and waves. Obviously, the waves go further back, so you can sit on a wave, but so long as you're not blatant about it.
And as hot as the speed is here, the speeds are fundamentally different. We saw that earlier in the day as well.
The boat speeds for men's C2 and women's K2 at every level should be about the same. So you are comparing like with like here, but obviously front end of a race.
And you see that in training as well.
Yeah, yeah. And Bridget said yesterday in commentary, was it only yesterday?
Thursday,
Day before. You know, men's C1, women's K1. You're looking at the same sort of speeds. Well, South Africans have made contact again, and they will be more than happy just to sit on the tail of that Hungarian boat. Maybe moving up to the side, even just with a better turn.
Women on lap 5 of 7 before they go into their short lap. And the Hungarians happy to put their paddles down. Absolutely no urgency. They're going to wait for the South Africans to get on the way. In fact, the incentive here is that Hockley and Mackenzie would go to the front and possibly take up the pull. That would be a first prize for Shikosh and Kohalmi. It's not going to happen, but they were more than happy just to chill, adjust their drink systems, wait for them to get onto the wave.
Okay, Dave, we're going to have to toss a coin because we've just been asked to do the interviews after this race. And I think you're the professional, and I think the coin has just landed in your favour. I'm just saying.
You're doing it again, just like you ate my whole birthday cake. What I'm going to do as the professional, I'm the anchor here.
Rock, paper, scissors.
I'm going to delegate it right now as the professional sitting in the chair.
I'm not sure that's how it works.
No, the critical thing for me is that the world needs to see Crocs and socks in an interview, and I can't do that right now. So
I don't think they do. I think you've highlighted the very reason why I should not be put out in public view.
I think, as the person who's been sitting in the closed portaloo for the last couple of hours, that your foot getting out into the fresh air would be a good thing for both of us.
I'd just bring the flies back in, Dave.
And there are swarms of them, people. You can't see it. You're very lucky that there's no sort of a fly-o-ometer in our commentary portaloo, because thanks to Lawler's rotting foot, the flies are buzzing around him. You're it, Ivan. I know you can do a champion job, and they'll respond better to you than me.
I don't think they will, but we'll see what happens.
Got your first question? How does
Stop it.
puzzle through them? That's the Swedish. Melina Anderson, let's run a rule over her. We had her in the highlighter zone coming into this race. Dropped off fairly early.
Yeah, and without I'm going to say a credible chase.
Without
either.
firing a shot. Yeah, that's the puzzling bit.
Yeah, she's raced twice already. She's won twice already.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just.
Up that.
I don't know if I'd be doing that if I was the South Africans. By rights, the Hungarians should drop round and come up the other side.
Yeah.
Because it's just more efficient to have your leader nearer the edge. But they're not. And South Africans are running them quite tight.
And yes, it's the quiet water. You're away from the current of the Naredva, but that's your weed pickup zone. And everybody's noticed that during the week.
South Africans cutting them tight, and maybe sometimes you don't really want to poke a bear. So I think
there's Beaker Man and Kate Leverett.
They got an annoying bit of weed on the front of their boat.
Well, that's exactly what we're talking about.
So Man and Leverett now in 7th place.
Paddles down for the South Africans, letting the Hungarians go to the front. Saskia in the backseat of that South African boat is a great K2 partner, because she's a bundle of energy. She's vocal, she's positive, she's aggressive.
So your countrymen, surely you're going to do that interview. You know them.
You're going to speak Hungarian. It's going to be fabulous to watch. Should we both do it?
Sure.
You can speak Hungarian, I'll speak to my friends. Laura, you've got it. Stop wiggling out of this. You're it. Just briefing the crew to start with a wide shot so that we can see sort of full-length pictures of the athletes, and I'm sure it'll be these two and yourself. Back to the C2 race. Spain and Poland, as it has been for the last 45 minutes. They are on their second to last full lap. You are going to get away from Metkovic without eating your frog. I regret that.
Yeah, I am.
I regret that, and I accept part responsibility for that. I was going to feed you frog and eel before you returned to Blighty, which...
To be fair, I was looking forward to the eel.
You did get mock shock when I told you the frog was coming.
Yeah. Round the
Tight
bottom turn they
from
go.
the pole. That feathered bow rudder is always a calculated stroke. You want to sacrifice as little speed as possible while pulling the nose around.
Poland take the lead, Spain on their right. And although it looks like they're just covering ground, they are taking stock of what's happening. They are planning ahead. They are measuring everything at this stage. There's always information coming in, even though it looks to all intents and purposes like a paddle round and a journey. Always there's information incoming, and you have to work with that information that comes in to plan where you go and when you go.
That's a good point. We live in the information age. Somebody noticed on the stream yesterday that athletes had plugs in their ears, and some athletes have earplugs in because they don't want water to get in. I'm not assuming they're going to swim. Yeah, but there were 2 athletes that were spotted by somebody watching the stream saying, what were those plugs in the ears? And then the little theory popped up, are there comms devices which enables a coach or a team manager to speak to the athletes throughout and pass on information about splits back to other groups or possible developments, or even a team instruction? Is there a room possibly in marathon paddling for a lightweight comm device in one of the paddlers' ears so that they could communicate information about changes?
Yeah, what information?
Splits.
Yeah,
Somebody
splits
watching
between
track
the group.
would be super
Yeah.
valuable. The gap is opening,
Yeah.
they're chasing, they're
Yeah.
closing. You're under no pressure, relax.
I think that's maybe the only information you need. Your management of your immediate location is, there's no coach in the world.
Nobody
really.
knows better than yourself.
And if you're not doing it right, by the time your coach has told you that, you've already missed what you should have done, because everything happens so fast.
Two-way comms. We're struggling with rudder steering. Please be prepared in the feeding zone to do maintenance.
That would make sense.
That would be a good call.
South Africans push up, it seems, to take the lead. Yep, there we go. Are we coming into the portage? Yeah.
Looks like one right. It is exactly that. So the South Africans are going left. The Hungarians are going right. Hungarians are first out of the boat. Chilled, relaxed.
See how the back paddler just waits for the boat to come to them. You must never, as the back paddler, pick that back up before your front person's got hold of their cockpit.
Both out of the water clean. Saskia and Christy running beautifully as they have done
worked
throughout.
out that they do run faster than the Hungarians, but if they get out after them, they can't overtake them because the Hungarians will just squeeze them across.
Change of plan for them. They've taken out left and they're going to put in left.
Yeah.
So there's going to be no contesting the put in, and it's quicker for both.
Good plan for, primarily it's a good plan for the South Africans. Still the Hungarians are away fast, aren't they?
They are.
They're in and out quickly. So we have third medal for Kahalmi this weekend.
Well, we were puzzling about how often that's been done, and I know we were maybe putting unnecessary pressure on Melina Anderson to try and get onto the same sort of bit of unique history.
She still might.
Into the portage comes the chase group, 3 going right, 1 going left.
South Africa left. Spain, and Sweden on the right.
Nick Burkett just a little slow out of the back of their boat.
The Swedes have got a handle in front of the front cockpit.
I was just
so
looking
she's
at
just carrying it slightly further forward. Now that seems a bit harsh because the front person has very little weight when they carry a K2 anyway. A vast majority of the weight. The balance point is the front end of the back cockpit. That's the balance point in a K2, give or take. So to have a handle in front of the front cockpit as the front person really is a bit lazy.
It also forces the boat against your thigh while you're running it.
Yeah.
Where a handle on the side of the cockpit gives you a little bit of wiggle room and your legs can move freely.
South Africans look to be in trouble here.
Oh,
that's a big-ish gap.
That is a biggish gap. They were slow on the takeout and slow getting away.
Mind you, these lot are in no hurry, are they? So we're on lap 6 of 7. And I think the nature of this race changed as soon as that second Hungarian boat left the field.
And the stress levels went. It just became complimentary, it must be said.
Those 3 round, pretty much nose to tail. Alvarez Fernandez.
Jade Wilson and Nick Burkett off the back of the bunch. You can see there, they're just cresting the apex cam. That's a long way off the back.
They're working hard, those two, to catch up. They made it.
Back to the front, and it's same two looking very comfortable and unthreatened by one another. Hungarian women's canoeing in a great place at the moment. It really is.
Well, you say at the moment, it's always been.
It's and not Not surprisingly, so many athletes choose to go and train in Hungary just because that's where the bar is set. The bar is set, and the intensity of training, I think, is something which a lot of athletes benefit from.
Problem with intensity of training, it becomes a bit of a survival game. You know, you might have a slightly more fragile athlete who can't deal with intensity, but if you manage them well, they can still get good results. You put them in an intense, relentless environment where athletes are, in inverted commas, disposable. You know, only the good ones can survive. You do miss some talent along the way. You can't just transplant a training system. If you got 1,000 athletes, you can do pretty much what you like with them. Somebody's going to be good. If you've only got 3 athletes, you've got to fine-tune it a little bit better. Both to the right in the men's C2, Grana and Duro.
Poles are good.
All running well. No one going through the drinks lane. And they're going to start their final large lap. Bourgil in the front of that Polish C2, already a winner this weekend.
That's our Portaloo in the front right, for those that have been asking.
Yeah, just the one closest to the umbrella there.
And the poles are away. If they wanted to, they could make life miserable for the Spaniards. One full lap to go, they might well go.
Certainly, Portugal won't have a say in the first 2 medals today. Poland away first. A few meters ahead of the Spanish crew with 1 big lap and 1 small lap,
I think
and 1 portage to go.
There's a discussion going on in that boat. Go, no go.
No.
And I think they've decided it's not worth it. We're good enough to take this at the...
The final portage is going to be a bit more hectic, I think. Be an interesting one.
I think we're going to see mirror races now for the next lap.
Yeah.
Portugal getting going, but they are stuck in no man's land. They're going to have a solitary race all the way through, but the consolation for them will be a spot on the podium and a bronze. These two working together so efficiently. Pace is still high. Down past the finish line.
So 1 more big lap. And then things begin to change.
And that final portage, I think, will be a lot more aggressive. I think the bragging rights are going to be decided by who puts in where at the end of that final portage, which is the one coming up next. Duro and Grana asserting themselves, going to the front. Might just be a routine changing of the pull, or maybe a little flexing of the muscles. Meanwhile, back with the women's K2 race, Christy McKenzie and Saskia Hockley find themselves at the front of the world champs, in that little numb zone, in that last unimportant lap, if such a thing exists.
It does for them. I mean, you can see the gap back to the group behind, and they've pulled that gap without actually having to work very hard either. They've just been going along at a very manageable speed, both crews.
And it looks like there's a little dialogue happening between Ms. Kohalmi and Saskia Hockley. They've worked together really well. They've eliminated a threat from anybody else in the field, and there's the rotation of the pull. It's been so mechanical, it's almost been preempted. That's why I think that 60-second timer is clicking into place on all of them long before the boat taking the pull actually starts slacking off and ready to...
Well, that's a fairly interesting race for bronze there. The South Africans haven't given up the chase yet, have they? They're in the background there. You probably favour the Spanish A crew for a bronze, but everything's very tight. Just had a message from HQ talking about comms devices. It says from next year comms devices will be banned, which suggests that there have been comms devices this year.
That stacks up. And again, okay, let me rattle the cage here. Maybe I'm steering outside of my lane. Why? If that sort of tech is available, well, there's two sides to this argument. One, the tech might add another dimension and make the racing more competitive. But two, unless that tech is available to virtually every federation,
Well, it has to be.
within reasonable budget constraints, it's not a fair advantage.
Yeah.
Both Ukraine on positions number 7 and 8.
I think
Cricket tried to do that for a while.
It does take the decision making away from the athlete as well, and I think athlete decisions of marathon racing is kind of what it's about.
Yeah.
You have to manage situations and you have to make decisions. You know,
And you live and die by those decisions.
Yeah, you had the chase yesterday between Romalo and the Spaniard. If you're getting information, you don't have all the emotional side, the questioning, the doubt. You know what's happening, and I think, I don't know. Yeah, I think potentially the athletes making their own decisions is maybe the heart of the sport.
Yeah. Cricket tried that for a while. It was a very interesting period in cricket where there were comms. The captain had comms with a coach who in turn was sitting next to a video analyst who was analysing every delivery bowled and saying, we have spotted through the technical analysis that he has a weakness here, instruct the bowler to bowl here. And it's clever stuff, but it clearly gives you an unfair advantage. And I like the organic nature of a sport requiring an athlete in the heat of the moment to take their decision and live and die by it.
South Africans are back with these three. So we've got a 4-boat. We'll refer to it as the chase group, but the chase was over long ago. In fact, the chase never really materialised.
It is the second bunch.
Yeah.
It will be the platform for what I think is going to be the most exciting part of the race.
Yep. So Hockley, McKenzie lead Shikos and Kahalmi. They've just been trading punches all the way round, but the punches have been pretty soft. Anderson and Richter leading currently from Fernandez and Alvarez of Spain. Osa and Toledo also of Spain. South Africans Wilson and Burkitt, and then maybe even closing in on them again is Mann and Leverett.
For this bunch, the final portage will be key. I think all of them would agree that 4 is a messy number racing for the final medal. If they could halve that to two boats, I'm sure the stronger athletes would be very... Pace is not hot at the front here. I know there was a rotation of the pool. This is the stage in the race where you start assessing your
own
energy
stores.
levels. How much gas have I got left in the tank? And just double checking your battle plan. Okay, it's down to 2. We fancy ourselves, we don't fancy ourselves. We need to be aggressive, we don't. Where do we fire the afterburner? Do we?
There's no aggression from either crew here, and you want to put that off. Certainly if you're the Hungarians, you want to put that off to as late as possible, because in a straight brawl over the last 200 meters, there's only one winner here. If the South Africans have to at some stage do some damage to the Hungarians, that might be at a portage, it might be round a turn, just pile it on, do something to suck the life out of the end sprint of the Hungarians, because I just don't think they've got the firepower in that South African boat to deal with the
It would have to be a
crew.
Dramatic move somewhere on that final lap, maybe at the bottom turn.
I think anywhere, but they've got it. The South Africans are in a position where they have to do something.
It's theirs to win. It's the Hungarians to lose right now, as it stands. Circumspect wide turn from the two leading C2s.
Well, they're coming up for their final portage, so we'll be treated to a music accompaniment for that.
I wonder what they're going to play.
Who knows? You write down what you think. I'll write down what I think. We'll
Right.
turn it over when they get here.
Mika's asking you to put the pox on an athlete.
No, surely not.
She's asking for a prediction for bronze. I just think for the sake of...
No, I'm not going to do it because...
I'm going to echo the word of lots of elite athletes.
Yeah.
Lawler,
please shut up.
Shut up.
Yeah, I can't do that to anyone.
Mika, nice idea.
My problem is always that I don't always vote with my head. I tend to vote with my heart, and that, yeah, it doesn't always end well. So Spain, Poland, Portugal, Spain, Moldova, Hungary, and then the two Ukrainians. That's the state of play in the men's C2 as they approach their final portage.
And if that's an assessment of the global status, it's two Ukrainian men's crews at the tail end of that leaderboard.
Yeah.
If there was going to be something I would have expected, it would have been.
Well, they're kind of mid-pack. Below them, you got the Romanians.
Yes, they are. I'm looking at that.
Second, Hungarian,
top six
Canada,
leaderboard.
and Italy. Italy quite a long way down.
Yeah.
I may have to dip into the biscuit bag again, Dave. Fade in.
Well,
turn my mic off. I'll do a bit of crunching.
Well, you've eaten all the nice ones.
Oh, shush.
The tasty. He's like a ferret. He goes straight to the bottom of.
Shush.
You as a kid must have squeezed the Christmas presents under the tree. I know you were that kid. You
They're
went
still
and picked
racing,
out
Dave. Stop it now.
You've taken all the nice biscuits, you swine. Did you want a biscuit eat session?
Yeah.
Okay.
Better had.
So there are the two leaders pushing upriver on their last full lap. They're going to head into the portage for the last time, and then they have that 350-meter downstream on the Neretva, and then they will turn and head up for the very last time. It's been a good, prodigious run. This is a 22.5k race. That's a long way. Seaboat paddlers feel that fatigue will be an issue right now. This boat is not going to be in competition for the gold. They are going to be comfortably in bronze medal position, but there's the race for gold. And sitting at home having watched this race, you decide for yourself. Don't expect us to do it because we know the consequences of that. But right now, the two leaders heading back upriver.
Often you have to look back to the start to see who might have the sharpest turn of speed. And it's actually the Spaniards who got off the line first.
I don't know. I was extremely impressed with the way that Zukora and Bourgil took off the line, and I thought they had the burst of speed to make them the scare boat.
Here we go.
There we go.
Coming into our final lap.
Second to last.
Oh,
my
no.
goodness,
Whoa, whoa,
stay
whoa.
the hell in the boat.
What happened there? In the back, a leg wasn't in the boat.
Just a momentary lapse of concentration.
There was fear on the face. They're laughing about it now. They're having a good old chuckle now, but that wasn't funny.
Let's hustle a replay of that. I'd love to see that once we've watched the next four boats come through the portage. That was just, we talked about the numb moment, the calm before the storm. That was taking your eye off the ball.
Mann and Leverett are right back at the back of this group again. They have done a lot of work, the entire day, pretty much, on their own, and they're back in contact.
Let's have a look at that replay
lapping.
again,
Here
just
we
for
go.
fun. This is Kohalmi.
Girls come in.
She's got her feet
Everything's in the boat at this stage. They roll out. She puts her leg out. Look at her. Now, I don't know how long they'll stay with it, but now they start having a chuckle.
The good thing is they never took on any water.
Yeah.
It would be sad.
They're still chatting and laughing
They
about
are
it
still
now.
giggling.
What the hell was that?
Great replay, guys.
Good
Thank
save,
you.
girls. A good save.
It was a damn good save, actually, because it could have ended. That would have been this race completely turned on its head. So the Hungarians go back to the front. A little bit of light relief at the start of this last long lap. Christy McKenzie, Saskia Hockley having to work hard to stay with them. They're off that wave at the moment. The Hungarians, even when they don't seem to be going at warp speed, are still so quick through the water. And you can see that from the pace needed by Christy and Saskia. As Nika quite rightly pointed out, that was what some paddlers call a knife stroke. You get the feather of the blade wrong and it just goes straight in. Moment of the champs for me still has got to be that seaboat paddle being thrown into the water, which would have been a race ender, and then just shooting out.
Why did he throw it in the first place? What was going on there?
But the probability of that thing shooting out at the same angle and popping back into your hand is less than 1%.
Yeah.
So upriver on the Neretva for the last time for the C1 senior men. If you missed our warbling from earlier on in this event, it's a river that originates high in the foothills of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is literally just to the screen right. If you paddle under the bridge for 500 meters, you get to the border of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Goes through the town of Mostar, famous town with that famous old bridge, and then arrives here, moves through Metkovic, eventually lands up in the
Here
Adriatic.
we go. There's a sense of urgency from the Poles now. They're on their final portage now, and Poland are definitely stretching the Spaniards. They want to create some pressure coming in. They've already opened up about a length and a half lead.
They're going right.
I suspect they're going to run hard now. Right. Boat out nicely, and they're up. They're emptied and away, and it's game over, isn't it? The gap is big.
Slick portage from the Poles. Yep. That's the gap they need. They can make that stick over 700 meters. They had a moment to really fire the killer blow, and I think we've just seen them do that right now. They need a slick put in. Zukora drops the tail. It's a fantastic put in from the Poles. Their quickest of the day by far, just when it counted, and they are gone for all money.
That's been the plan all along, I would suspect.
And that, in
cover the
comparison,
distance, have a good last
pedestrian.
portage.
The race is done. That is a master stroke from the Poles on the portage. They bided their time. And when it really counted, they delivered. And look at that. They've suddenly got a 75-meter lead going up to the turn can. And if you want an example of how a portage can define a race, there it is. The C2 has been decided by a magnificent portage. Great game plan from the Poles, executed to perfection, executed with intensity, and they are gone at the front of the race. Body language is good. They know it's now 2 turns. They've eased their way around that apex turn can. They'll have a chance on the way down to look over the shoulder, and they'll see that that portage has gifted them a 75-meter lead over their chasers. Now it's adrenaline. Even if the tank is running close to E and there's a flashing light on the dashboard, they've got 350 meters down to the bottom turn can. That bottom turn can is not a technical issue. They will turn around and they will see these boats still coming down as they turn around. And it'll be a luxury of the Poles being able to enjoy the paddle home to the finish. Full power from the Poles as they go downriver on the Neretva. But wow, we thought they were strong. We didn't think they would deliver a killer blow like that on the portage.
It all seems so straightforward when it happens like that, doesn't it? But that's been in the planning for lap after lap after lap. There's been a gradual build to that. You don't really see that as a casual observer, but you know it's happening. They're just gradual chipping away. They've worked out how their portage is. They've worked out how the Spaniards' portage is. They know it, they can do it. And it was clinically done when it happened.
To the point that it was a plan that was executed magnificently. But for the other portages, do you hold something back? Do you keep your cards close to your chest and just canter home with them? Go through the motions on the portage? That's the gamesmanship in this sort of racing. Gunning now. Matheus and Matheus. Bogiel and Zukora. And if anything, they are opening up a gap on their chasers. The race has, to all intents and purposes, been decided by one of the most dramatic C2 portages you'll ever see. Just executed to perfection. You so seldom see a C1 or a C2 risking a high-speed boat moving in the water put in at the end of a portage. They did that in that boat, and it was glorious to watch. Borgil, Zukora go into the final set of turn, boys. Boat speed hardly drops as they turn tight around the cans. It's a glorious display of C2 paddling from the poles. Now, of course, they have this invigorating chance to just look over their left shoulders, and they will see that their chasers are just going into the bottom turn now. They're not giving up for a second. It's going to be flat out from the Spaniards all the way to the finish. Poland 1, Spain 2.
Maybe I should raise questions about the hairband if I do the interviews.
Total lack of headgear here.
No, it's not. He's got an Alice band on there.
Oh.
Yeah, he's looking smart. Strong look.
So the fashionista of Metkovic is going to go there in the interview.
Poland, from Spain, from Portugal. We know our medalists now. No medal this year for the big guns of Campos and Romero.
Zukora, Borgil. Doesn't matter that the tank is empty right now. Portugal go through the final set of turns. But they're your champions. They can now complete the grind knowing that there's no threat. They don't have to hug the right-hand bank. In fact, that's not what they're doing. They're going into the current of the Neretva because they know it's going to make no difference to the outcome. Speed is high. And these two poles can now line up those two white Finnish boys and look forward to hearing the Polish national anthem ringing out over the town of Metkovic when that medal ceremony happens in about an hour's time. But down to the line, your world champions, Mateusz and Mateusz. Poland take gold.
We saw Borgil's first gold yesterday, and we've just seen Zukora's first gold. And Zukora has been at this for a long time. This is 13th start. Borgil, yeah, I mean, they've been at it for a long time, and that's their first gold together. Here come the Spaniards.
Grania and Duro. It's been a great arm wrestle between the two. They were knocked out by a sucker punch in that last portage, and they are stoked with the silver.
I think in
Grania
Spain
at
often
40, what did you say it was?
47, I think.
47 is now winning silver at the World Champs. Yes.
Often
yes,
for the Spaniards,
yes.
it's the race against the teammates that's one of the bigger things in these races. Not the bigger, but it's a big factor, and they will come out of it victorious over maybe potentially the big guns. Now Rui and Ricardo, they're coming across with third place.
They rescued.
Shall I ask them if they're happy about their race when I get the interview?
That's pretty excellent to maintain the celebrations all the way through the rescue operation. Portugal take bronze. Tough race for them.
Does look like a tough race.
No, they're in medal mode.
As well. Yeah.
When in doubt, beat the boat.
Well, there you go. That's
Poland, Spain. Tears. Tears from the Portuguese. Are they happy? They are completely overwhelmed.
Could just be wind. So Spain, with Campos and Romero, so used to being on podiums of every step. It will be
now the key
a
thing,
little bit of a flat point.
The key thing now, as Clive has pointed out, is let's keep our eye on the portage, the last portage for the women's K2, because that's coming up pretty soon. So 1, 2, 3 sorted out for the C2. And here comes, we set them up early on, and there was expectations on Campos, but not their day today.
I think you can tell Romero probably hasn't spent as much time training this year as he might like.
Spain coming down to the line. Let's have a look at track and see how close the women's K2 are to the portage.
They're about halfway back from the bottom turn.
Halfway back from the bottom turn, so we will get that. Medals are decided.
Here we go.
There we go. Our leaders.
What has happened though?
Our leaders are clear. So Hungary are clear. Kohalmi and Sikos are clear. How far back?
20 meters behind. The race is already done, isn't it?
They have dropped.
It'll be interesting to see how they did that. Maybe we can ask. Maybe that's what I can ask.
Yeah, where did it happen and how? You can see Christy is going to do everything she can to try and get within contact at the portage where they can have one last desperate roll of the dice to see if they can dethrone this Hungarian crew of Sikos and Kohalmi. As we watch the backmarkers, or the other paddlers, they're not backmarkers by any stretch of the imagination. This is the Moldovan crew. But here we go, there's a great idea of where the gap is. Sikos Kohalmi have probably got 30 meters at this stage.
They've never broken rhythm, have they? It's just been this relentless, rhythmic power.
Yeah, I'd call them the Rolls Royce, and they've just lived up to that every minute of this race. It's been glorious. And the nuggety challenge from Saskia Hockley and Christy McKenzie is going to persist right the way to the end.
And this is the interesting one now. 1 medal from 4 boats. Who do you fancy in here? Probably the Spaniards, who are leading now, would be on paper the favourites. Look at the power in that though.
I'm going to do what you did in the previous race and just go with sickening bias. I would love Nick Spurker to win.
You can do that. I don't. That's our prerogative.
Jade and Nikki to take bronze.
If anyone else wants to sit in a public toilet for 2 days, they can also be biased.
Well, I sat having to dodge your ping pong in the washing machine during the previous race.
Yep, exactly.
But there's your champions disappearing out of screen, just like they have for most of the race.
They haven't done the portage yet. You saw what happened on the last one.
That was the only blemish on what has otherwise been an absolutely flawless outing. But this will be sporty, there's no doubt about that. Up front, Zoka Sikos and Nemes Kohalmi holding all the cards in terms of winning that World Championship title and the gold medal. Another one for Ongaria.
Fernandez Alvarez leading in.
There they go.
That group of 4.
Let's cast our eyes left somewhere where the graphic is at the moment to get an eye of where the chase is coming from, if it's coming on from Saskia and Christy at all.
Just a process now for these girls.
It is. And that annoying strand of weed is probably going to sit on the cockpit lip in front of Sikos for the remainder of the race. There's the gap. Now let's have a quick look at the water. No, they're coming into the portage right now under absolutely no pressure. They've gone right every time. They glide that boat in parallel, skip out, hand stays on the cockpit. Elegant stuff from the Hungarians. They've been elegant. They've been a treat to watch throughout this race. There's no need to do any heroics on the portage. They literally are getting
They were at that little edge of what. Let's hope that doesn't happen again. There's the
place
crew
at the stage.
who've been very much like the British crew in the junior men's. They've been gifted a ride round. They've made the most of it. You don't get gifted anything. You have to be in the right place at the right time and do the right things. They did everything right. They did a journey with a crew that was always going to be stronger than them, and they made the most of it. They've survived long enough to be safe enough to get their silver medal, and that is a properly well-earned silver medal.
It's going to be a silver medal that is going to be particularly important to Team South Africa, that's gone through the ups and downs, and as I'm sure you're going to puzzle with both of them have had to heal wounds from their earlier experiences on the Neretva here, and this is going to be the most wonderful healing silver medal they've ever had. Your champions on their short lap. Zoka and MS. Now, this is what we're looking forward to. The final 4 in the race for bronze.
Fernandez Alvarez look like they're going to at least open a gap. Swedes just struggling to contact with their boat. There may have been impact on the rudder, but it wasn't much. We know Anderson can run.
They are redlining this portage because they know it's going to count.
It's going to be a long last lap. Those gaps aren't big.
The gaps are not big at all. The put in is going to be key at this
Spain
stage.
2 is the one that's out of the picture, that's for sure. South Africa's still in with a shout here, but it's really how quickly can the Swedes get back in is probably the question. They're in very well, actually. They're going to leave with the Spaniards.
Spain going well. They're away.
Down to a 2-boat race for 1 medal. I wouldn't go too hard if I was the Spaniards. We saw what Anderson could do on the end sprint earlier this weekend, so I would be very nervous being Spanish at this moment.
Spain 2 off the back of that bunch. They've rattled themselves out of contention, but a great run on the portage from the Spaniards. And here we go. There are the 3 in the chasing bunch. There are is that 2?
2.
It's 2 to all intents and purposes.
Yep. They might close up, but to close up, overtake, and get the best of a finishing sprint is possibly too much. These 2 maybe not looking quite as sharp as they have in the past, but they're still in control. They did come into the portage first, which is a telltale sign that they are the stronger in the group.
So that's the dice for bronze. Onto the wave. We'll probably be together at the bottom turn. Should be a thrilling subplot to what has been a great women's K2 race, dominated by Zorka Shikos and Nemes Kolhalmi.
The South Africans are going to struggle, aren't they, from there?
Yeah, they've got
they're closing.
You're going to need extra sets of turbos to close that gap at this stage. They are closing.
They will. I think they'll close, but to get past is a super big ask. Spaniards got a lot of race experience. We saw, though, Anderson overhaul Kisley on the run into the finish yesterday. We know she's got finishing speed. Whether the whole crew have a finishing speed or the crew is how fatigued that crew is, we don't know. But I wouldn't want to race 1-to-1 with Anderson, having seen her performances earlier in the weekend.
So yes, they're fighting, but there's also a little smile creeping across the face of Saskia Hockley. Saskia and Chrisley turning at the bottom turn cans for the very last time in second position and setting themselves up to win a silver medal in the senior women's K2 for South Africa. And Saskia, as she has been throughout the race, vocal. She is just a ball of energy in the back of that boat. It'll be positive encouragement. But they're certainly not taking their foot off the pedal at all. Now, here we come down to the bottom turn can. Is there going to be an opportunity created for the South Africans to get back into contention here? It's unlikely. This is a simple turn. They're snapping at the heels, snapping at
they'll get there.
At the tails of those 2 boats.
What can they do?
Can they slingshot their way around this to possibly give them a shot?
This bit here could get them to the side of the Spaniards. If they don't make that, they're going to struggle.
They're looking for an inside.
Spaniards should do what Kisley should have done yesterday. Hold the Swedes to that side for as long as possible. Just run them right up the edge, not brutally, but just hold them there. Don't give them the option of overtaking until it's a very short distance to the finish. Short distance for the finish for the winners, though. Shikos and Kohalmi absolutely dominated from start to finish. Big smiles.
And richly they deserve that. And
that's going to be more big smiles here.
That is a silver medal that is going to erase the nightmares of earlier this week in Metkovic for Saskia Hockley and Christy McKenzie. It's going to be a silver medal that is going to be an absolute tonic for Team South Africa. As they come down to the line, they've been full value for the contest. I think they'll happily concede that the silver medal is the right result. Down to the line they come.
Turn the watches off.
Magic silver medal for South Africa. That's for Saskia in the picture there.
Here we go. It's the Swedes have overtaken the Spaniards. And it's Sweden pulling away.
You said you saw this coming without me having to ask you to open your mouth. Anderson and Richter just dropped the hammer when it really counts, and it's going to win them the bronze medal. They are hauling away. Spain's Tanya Alvarez and Tanya Fernandez are going to finish in 4th. There's a fist pump from Melina Anderson, and tears in the back cockpit from Ella Richter. Nikki Burkett, Jade Wilson crossed the line. They'll be content with that. It was a... And somebody's swimming already.
Who have we lost out the back of a K2 there?
Who's piled out in celebration?
Toledo and Osa, they're going to be next to cross the line.
Another solid result for España. Congratulations to each other at the end of a dogged race.
Okay.
Rebecca Beakerman and Kate Leverett wrap up their race for Australia, leaving it all out on the water. Wow, what a race. Zorka Shikosh and Amis Kolhalmi measured, and no doubt whatsoever that the correct result is going to come up on the leaderboard when we display it on your screens in a couple of moments' time. Just a K2 combination for the years. Glorious to watch in action. So, the C2 men complete. Mateus and Matthias in the colours of Poland. Zukora and Borgil are your champions, and richly deserved. Getting the edge over a very dogged challenge from Jaime Doro and Oscar Grania. Portugal's Rui Lacera and Ricardo Coelho wrapping up the last spot on the podium. Campos and Romero, so much expectation on them. They're going to have to settle for 4th. The legend of the game just wouldn't be the same without Campos on the water and Romero. Tarnowski and Tarnowski in the Moldova Cullens, also just out of contention for those podium places. Two races, providing a thrilling spectacle for the crowd that's gathered on the grandstands here on the sides of the river Neretva in Metkovic, in Croatia. As we head into the final stage of what has been a captivating weekend and a great showcase for marathon racing as a sporting spectacle. Thanks everybody for your eyeballs and your comments. Champion follower Mika's got a comment. Wonder why the guy sitting in the front in the K2 doesn't put a heart rate watch of the partner into his sight. Mika, that's such a good point. Ivan and I were wrestling with the whole concept of how much information can you bolt into marathon racing. Marathon racing has got a great sort of organic limitation to it, which means the athlete on the water has to take their own decisions. I'm fully in your camp, Mika. I think whatever information you can get from your heart rate monitor and your information you should be able to share. But the C2 champions are completed of their boat control, and it's time to go and see Ivan chatting to them.
And your second gold medal today. Help him out, man.
Yes, this is very good competition for Mateusz. He have two gold medal in these championships and 1 silver. In Polish, this is in history never not doing this result.
And for you, it's your first gold medal at World Championship Marathon. Finally, it's been a while coming. It's got to be a good feeling.
Yes, we're waiting for this moment 8 years, and now we're very happy.
Thank you. On to the Spaniards. Oscar, we spoke about it earlier. It was your 20th birthday yesterday. You did a really hard paper round as a young kid. How do you feel after getting your silver medal today?
This is very special for me because I won my last medal in 2018 and I come back with a silver medal. I feel like a young boy.
You look like a young boy. Okay, on to the Portuguese, 3rd place. Are you happy with your 3rd place, guys?
Yes, we are very, very happy. Yeah, of course, it was a hard preparation this year, always apart from each other, just training a couple of weeks together, but comes to the end, we get a medal, and we are very happy with it.
Perfect job. Congratulations, guys. Brilliant race all round. Really good to see it. Thank you.
Magic insight into the C1 racing. We did touch on the issue of how long teams need to train together to be optimal and to get the efficiency and the strength and the base together. And fascinating to hear that separated by jobs, commitments, life, they were only able to spend a couple of weeks together and get together enough to be able to get onto the podium and to get a world championship medal. So
English to me over there when I first questioned him. The question was he spoke English. He was the one. And then he just clammed down.
solid interviews, great insight from Ivan. There was a great moment in that wide shot where you caught his Crocs and socks on the screen, but they did spare him any further indignity by zooming in on the athletes. So, C2 medals sorted. That'll be done in a moment or two's time, the actual medal ceremony. And it's exciting to see somebody realize the context of their medal as it stands in the nation's history in that particular discipline. There's confirmation of the results as they stand right now in the K2 senior women. Magnificent. It's going to be a performance to look back on year after year. Zoka Shikosh and Ames Kolhalmi winning it for Hungary. Saskia Hockley and Christine McKenzie with a silver that is